Sitting in front of your computer, you watch the minutes ticking away as you wait for a corporate response you filed away 2 weeks ago regarding a complaint for malpractices in the manufacturing of safety equipment. The hypothalamus sends out the order to release stress hormones in your body. These hormones will set your body on a fight-or-flight response and trigger a chain of reaction as your body starts to prepare for the impending danger. The heart rate and breath quickens, your muscles tenses up for action. The body is preparing to protect against any danger that may rise out of the situation and help you to react quickly and in the best possible manner. But what happens when the stress hormones keeps firing up regularly? It can put the body at serious health risk. Typically after a stress response, the body relaxes and eases up the tension. But repeated cycles may throw the brain into an overdrive. It can have severe long-lasting negative effects on your health. Stress is a normal biological reaction to a potentially dangerous situation. When you encounter sudden stress, your brain floods your body with chemicals and hormones that heightens your awareness like adrenaline and cortisol. The hypothalamus at the base of the brain orders the pituitary and adrenal gland to release an abundance of hormones as a defense mechanism. During this time, there are at least 15 physiological changes triggered at once in the body. Research proves that stress has driven evolutionary changes in many species. The species adapted best to the stressors, the cause of stress, survived and evolved over time. The neocortex of the brain has helped the humankind to adapt regularly to changing conditions. So, when we say stress has so many benefits, what makes it so negative in the present times? Stress can be positive, keeping us alert, motivated, and ready to avoid danger. Stress becomes negative when a person faces continuous challenges without relief or relaxation between stresses. As a result, the person becomes overworked, and stress-related tension builds. The body's autonomic nervous system has a built-in stress response that causes physiological changes to allow the body to combat stressful situations. However, this response can become chronically activated during prolonged periods of stress. Prolonged activation of the stress response causes wear and tear on the body, both physical and emotional. The nervous system finds it difficult to distinguish between physical and emotional threats. This also contributes to the threat, and the more your emergency stress system is activated, the easier it becomes to trigger, making it harder to shut off. Chronic stress disrupts nearly every system in your body. It can suppress your immune system, upset your digestive and reproductive systems, increase the risk of heart attack and stroke, and speed up the aging process. It can even rewire the brain, leaving you more vulnerable to anxiety, depression, and other mental health problems. While stress works in the background of our lives, we do not notice its effects as they continue to build upon. You can get used to your stress and may even feel normal. You don't notice how much it's affecting you, even as it takes a heavy toll. Symptoms of stress make it easier for us to understand the bigger picture better and take note of the root cause. Cognitive symptoms can be memory problems, poor judgment, and constant worry, inability to concentrate, while emotional symptoms include anxiety, burnout, loneliness and feeling isolated, depression or other mental health issues. There can be behavioral symptoms of stress as well, like drastic change in appetite, too less or too much sleep, procrastination, drug abuse among other things. The cause of stress can be either internal or external. For example, when you overthink about any event that leads to undue worries or some major changes happening in your life due to a promotion. Finally, what causes stress depends, at least in part, on your perception of it. Something that's stressful to you may not faze someone else. They may even enjoy it. While some of us are terrified of getting up in front of people to perform or speak, for example, others live for the spotlight. Where one person thrives under pressure and performs best in the face of a tight deadline, another will shut down when work demands escalate. And while you may enjoy helping to care for your elderly parents, Your siblings may find the demands of caretaking overwhelming and stressful. External causes of stress include major life changes, relationships, financial problems, workplace issues, family issues. Internal causes of stress include pessimism, negative self-image, unrealistic expectations, rigid mindset, and inability to accept uncertainty, among other things. Change: imagine a ball being hit by a bat and the quantum of force it requires to move it in the first place. Then imagine somebody at the opposite end of the field catching it mid-air. These two scenarios, when looked at through physics, show contrast, but the underlying philosophy is same. Change. If you look at human behavior, it is not much different than the philosophy of the moving ball. But why is change so difficult and inconvenient? Theories on the psychology of change may give you an answer. There can be various personality dispositions that can make a person rigid. However, that is just a broad generality and does not predict well how we behave in specific situations. Intention plus ability equals change. Intention and ability determine behavioral change. The ability has to come first in order to introduce change. Any action will be done successfully only when you have the required skill set for the task at hand. Without the required skill set, you won't be able to perform the action, regardless of your sincerity. Next comes the right mindset or intention. You know how to read a book but don't make a regular effort at reading, you will never be able to read 100 books like you earlier wanted to achieve. The adage "if you don't think you can do it, you can't" has a real scientific basis. If you perceive the action to be unachievable and difficult, chances are you won't even give it a try. What influences our intentions to change? In addition to the perceived ability to change, there are two other important factors. Positive attitude towards change, whether we see the change as favorable or unfavorable. If you do not perceive the outcomes as favorable, you are much less likely to put in efforts on actions that will get you there. People around us also influence our attitude towards change. If we kneel under social pressure, we may get influenced and face the change unfavorably. Strategies: automaticity and consistency. Two strategies could make us adaptable to change: automaticity and consistency. If we make our brains take up controlled action and program it to function automatically, we may glide through changes easily and without bearing stress. Rules should be established and followed through to avoid negative traits to creep in. Accepting change as a regular part of our brain will make it a habit. Thus, consistency will contribute to and feeds off of automaticity. Accepting changes will also rewire a brain to handle stress better and enhance survivability. When you have clients who are feeling very stressed, they need to understand why they feel this way. They need to be able to identify the various triggers and what they can do to resolve issues. These are the practicalities of stressors, but often the problem of mindset. Chronically stressed people are often overwhelmed. As stress creates a great deal of mental, emotional and physical fatigue, it's often too much effort to battle against these stresses. So, they continue, adding more and more stress until it compounds and ends in physical and mental burnout. Simply by talking to someone, to a counselor or psychotherapist, clients tend to develop more positive ways of dealing with stresses and start to embark upon a more positive outlook. Coping strategies to adjust or reduce stress. People often utilize various combinations of behavior, thoughts, emotions and actions. Depending upon the situation, the person may choose the options best suited or easily doable. It is often seen that people with stress at work cope with anger, anxiety, or depression. Defense mechanisms occur at unconscious level and people are unaware that they are using them. Whereas coping mechanisms are used to manage an external situation that is creating problems for an individual. It can alter the person's internal psychological state. Coping styles can be problem-focused or emotion-focused. Problem-focused coping strategies are typically associated with methods of dealing with a problem in order to reduce stress, while emotion-focused mechanisms can help people handle any feelings of distress that result from the problem. Coping mechanisms and mental health. The use of effective coping skills can often help improve mental and emotional well-being. People who are able to adjust to stressful or traumatic situations, and the lasting impact these incidents may have, through productive coping mechanisms may be less likely to experience anxiety, depression, and other mental health concerns as a result of painful or challenging events. People who find themselves defaulting to maladaptive coping mechanisms and/or experience difficulty utilizing effective coping strategies may eventually see a negative impact on mental and emotional well-being. Those who have a difficult time knowing how to cope with anxiety, stress, or anger may fall into the habit of relying on a maladaptive coping mechanism. Consuming alcohol can often help people feel less stressed in the immediate moment, for example, but if a person comes to rely on alcohol, or any other substance, in the face of challenging situations, they may eventually become dependent on the substance over time. Therapists can provide support and information about coping skills, and therapy sessions can be a safe, non-judgmental environment for people to explore the coping methods they rely on. This means that during therapy, individuals work on their stress response, learning how to identify and eradicate triggers or consider new ways of combating stress by learning ways to start over. Identifying stressors and eradicating them where possible is key. Effective coping strategies go to the heart of the problem, and the focus is on changing what is possible rather than focusing on what is not. Your clients need to feel a sense of equilibrium in life so to create foundations of health and well-being. Cognitive appraisal. The theory of cognitive appraisal explains the mental processes which influence the stressors. The theory believes that stress is a two-way process. It involves the production of stressors by the environment and the response of an individual subjected to these stressors. In the primary stage of cognitive appraisal, the clients make up a database of the stressors that affect his/her life. It will help them to identify and evaluate issues that are likely the root cause of the problems. It boosts confidence and resilience. Reviewing the track records also provides them with greater positivity and esteem. The second part of primary cognitive appraisal is to classify whether the stressor or the situation is a threat, a challenge or a harm loss. When you see the stressor as a threat, you view it as something that will cause future harm. When you look at it as a challenge, you develop a positive stress response. On the other hand, viewing the stressor as harm loss means that the damage has already been experienced. Secondary appraisals involve those feelings related to dealing with a stressor or the stress it produces. Uttering statements like, "I can do it if I do my best," "I will try whether my chances of success are high or not," and "if this way fails, I can always try another method," indicates positive secondary appraisal. Although primary and secondary appraisals are often a result of an encounter with a stressor, stress doesn't always happen with cognitive appraisal. One example is when a person gets involved in a sudden disaster, such as an earthquake, and he doesn't have more time to think about it, yet he still feels stressful about the situation.